If you're questioning something, there's a lack of clarity there. And, I believe when you understand something, you can move on. Golf will drive you crazy. So if you're questioning your golf swing and you don't have maybe the right team set up or you don't have the right coach connection, you can lack clarity in several ways and it can just drive you crazy. You have to know who you are. And if that means you turn everything off and you just put the blinders on and you go get it done, I'd say there's more people that have to be like that than can act like, oh, I can just be so relaxed out there and this is great. You have your system to create a result and you do what you need to do to get there.
How do you keep yourself calibrated? Are you just all feel? I know sometimes I'm so cerebral that I'm like always trying to get into the mind of an athlete and it's all feeling. So
I really think for me, the presence, like I could tell like when I had a feeling. I say this because I could feel it in my hands. Like when my hands would get shaky. For me, it was like my body wouldn't move as much. My arms would kind of take over, but I would have this feeling like it's like the feeling's coming.
Welcome back to the Gamma Secret broadcast. Today I have with you Emma Jandel, our first LPGA Tour player that I've had on this broadcast. I have been gunning for one of the people in the big time and the big show to have on this. So thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule, Emma, for us.
Oh, thank you, Brooke. I'm so excited to be here and I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah. So you are a recently pregnant LPGA player. So you are on leave. One of my coaches in college actually fought for the ability for women on tour to take leave. So it's very cool that that's still like upstanded. Can you give us a little bit of a background of what that's like what that process looked like?
Of the
getting
maternity
pregnant
process?
And then
okay, yes, for sure.
I'm clueless about it. Never actually even had a conversation with somebody who went through it. So I'd love to hear about it.
Yes, well, I'm going to have to connect with your friend or mentor who you said who worked on the maternity policy because that's kind of what I got into. I find out I'm pregnant and then it just like I just went downhill so fast where I just started getting sick and, couldn't really eat much. But I'm like, I have to keep going. Like the season, it was like mid-July when I found out. And, you don't want to tell anyone at the beginning. It's like this you're in a new space. So like, I didn't know really how to handle myself until I just started feeling so bad that I had to figure out something. And basically my doctor said, you have to stop playing. I lost 10 pounds in 2 weeks trying to keep playing. And at the time, the tour didn't really have a policy that protected the pregnancy part of things. It was treated as an injury, like a medical injury. And that's how they kind of worded it. So according to the rules, like I couldn't keep playing. So I had to stop, but I didn't have enough tournaments to take a medical to get my status back. So that just didn't really sit well with me. So basically, I didn't have a chance to qualify and for the next year's tour to keep status long term. And I hadn't had the best first part of my season. So I was basically done, like all status off all the tours. And it was like, it was just not a good feeling. And so it was just not sitting well with me. So I wrote a letter to the tour which turned into multiple letters to the tour. And now the policy has been changed. And
good job.
Yeah. So I would love to connect with your friend because there's you want to know, like, if I could plan this, I would have planned it, according to the calendar year, right? Which sets up, how it works with the schedule and stuff like that. But that's just, I feel like I'm pretty blessed to get pregnant in the first place. So it had been a long time coming. And so it was a lot of emotions going into that. And so, now I knew once the rule had passed that I could maintain my status when I came back from the maternity policy, which was in place. Once you have your baby, you have 2 years to come back to the tour. So that's where I'm at. And now circling back again, I'm due May 17th for the second baby girl, and we'll have a few years to, just get my feet on the ground with the baby. So kind of a long answer, but it was definitely not what I expected going into being pregnant, where I just felt bad and then thinking I just lost all my status of pretty much everything I've worked for years.
Yeah.
That I would have to start at ground zero again. And that was just wasn't a good feeling, but thankfully
Emma,
that has changed.
For people who don't know tour politics,
sure,
right? And keeping status, for those that don't know, it is a fight to be in the top 120 in the world. And when you're a winner, it gives you certain exemptions where you get to kind of stay in it for a while. But if you do not win on tour, which is one of the most complicated things to do, you have to continue to keep your ranking high. Could you give us a brief overview for people who have never heard of these kind of like stats? A lot of sports are set up very differently. So golf is pretty intense year after year to keep your status.
It is. Until you are like a major winner, like a major winner will give you the longest extension, or I would say job security. But pretty much each year you have to re-earn your job. So on the LPGA, the top 100 players will keep full status, but then all of those other girls, they have limited status up to 150. But if not, you're going back to what they call Q school, which is just a qualifying tournament that gives you another opportunity to earn your status for the following year. And that then trickles down to the tour below the LPGA, which is called the Epson Tour, which also has its own system. So, it can be
It's
a
the
luxury.
farm.
Right, exactly.
For the LPGA, like how they talk about baseball. Like,
Yes.
The Epson Tour is like the farm for the LPGA. And then Q School is not, it is not cheap to run through.
No.
What is it now these days? Is it 10K still to get in? Or?
The entry fee is $6,500, and then you have all your expenses, a caddy and everything else.
So it's still like 10K.
Yeah. Oh yeah, at least.
So nobody wants to go back to Q School because you're kind of in this reset and then you're in this big gamble to just hope to have job security. And if I remember correctly, there's no money in Q School. There's no like winner's check.
No.
Yeah. So you're
I
just
think
paying
now
to try.
they pay out a little bit, and I guess this is what it is, but like it's barely enough to cover your expenses. So like, I mean, it's nice that they're trying to get something going, but it's not much.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So now that we've kind of caught people up on that, pretty insane that you've had to navigate it. Barbara Mizrahi was one of the women that I got to work with. She was like a coworker of mine at a country club down here in Boca Raton, and she was part of when you had kids on tour. There was nothing for the kids to do. So she was a big part of like the politics with the LPGA tour, trying to like make it okay for them to take their kids out and have some sort of system in place for them while there was tournaments.
So awesome and so needed. They now have a daycare program for the women traveling on tour, and they can bring their families, and it's game changer. Like you can't do it without it. So I give her a lot of credit and say thank you for the trailblazers in front of us who have, continued to like make their mark and just make things better.
Yeah. What is it like on tour that you've been telling me that you're playing with being an agent for other members as you've been in this kind of like switch over, which as an athlete, I just want to let you know that it is a wild thing to pursue something to such a level of excellence where it is your life. And then to not be able to train at that level, it is incredibly disorienting and disassociating. And I think as a golfer, you have there is such a level of perfection that you're seeking. You're calibrated to what a great shot is. And it's hard to find that kind of mathematical feedback in the rest of the world. So like, I love music. It's a different kind of grading system to get into that flow state. So as you're, navigating children, I hope that you find that extra hobby that can like do the thing in your brain that like only golf can do. But tell me a little bit about like what is exciting you about being an agent? Where's the opportunity do you see?
Yeah, I feel like I don't even like the word agent. The more that I've been doing this for now about a year, it's almost like a consultant is more of what I'm leaning towards, where it's like seeing like the overarching world that these girls are in, that there's like really where do they need support, right? Like really getting these girls, being able to be a mirror and clearly their vision and how I can help bring that to life. Like, do they need a better caddy? Do they need better coaching? Do they need just someone to really do the deals? Like, that's what most of the quote unquote agents, I think, do now. They're more transactional deal makers. Or do they just need a positive person that they know is going to pick up the phone? There's like tour life can be challenging. And so, to your point of like finding a flow state, like what I'm most passionate about is like mindset and clarity. And I believe like when you have clarity, you can tap into your greatest flow state. Like clarity equals confidence to me. And so if I can help, I'm not solely focused on women, but if I can help these players like create clarity and create like an ecosystem of like of flow. I believe like their people's potential is endless, but it's really about creating that environment that sets people up for success. So that's what gets me like most excited. And it took me years of learning, I don't like the word fail, but like just really things didn't go well to like understand how could it get this bad to like understand how it could get this good too. Where I've had coaches where all of a sudden things click and they click instantly. And then you're so clear on what you're doing in your swing and what you're doing, you know, like outside the course. And when things really get into that flow state is, how can I be a resource for these girls to help create that flow state and bring it to life more often than not? I'd say that's like probably the short answer for you, of what the mind is capable of, and it's capable of whatever you imagine it to be.
So I did name this broadcast Gamma Seekers because I think that the flow state is the state of gamma brainwaves
Yes.
in coherence with the body. So you've brought up the word clarity a lot. I would love for you to kind of dive in. Like, what do you mean by clarity, and how would you kind of metric it or test it or seek it out? Tell us all about clarity.
I mean, I like to like break down all the different parts of your game or your relationships. I feel like relationships in general, like if you're questioning something, there's a lack of clarity there. And,
Hmm.
I believe when you understand something, you can move on. But if you're still kind of confused, like, I mean, golf will drive you crazy, right? So if you're questioning your golf swing and you don't have maybe the right team set up or you don't have the right coach connection, you can lack clarity in several ways and it can just drive you crazy. And I guess I've had enough coaches to know when things really worked and when they really didn't. And so that's one aspect of clarity, but then there's the business side of clarity, making sure that you have enough, your financials are set for the year and you're clear like, hey, is my budget in alignment? Can I do all of this year? Can do I need to think ahead better on my travel planning? And am I able to have that nice dinner, or do I need to pack my peanut butter and jelly sandwich all week? But if you're just like, it's July, I hope I have enough, right? Like that's not a plan. So like clarity in those types of in every lane. And like another,
Yeah.
like there's a lot of potentials. I like my quotes because it's like I feel like we've been given one story and then what actually happens is another. Like when these girls, like this year working with an LPGA player, they say once you play better, like sponsors are just going to be lining up. Well, it's not the case. And you really have to like have a plan, like create clarity with your social, like with the way that you're marketing yourself as a business. And, right now that like we've, it's hard. It's hard. You can't do it all. Right. And so having a plan going into it and really getting the whole piece, like I like the wheel analogy, right? Like you can have your performance wheel, you can have your business wheel. And as an athlete, as a professional, like it's not just performance anymore. You need to have those other parts of the wheel buttoned up to make it go as fast as it can. So that's how I like to think about things and organize that to just create some structure and flow.
Emma, there is a ton of overlap of being a touring athlete and a touring musician, and all of the equipment baloney that you have to like get in line, all of the budgets. For bands, it's ticket sales and t-shirt sales. That's where the rev is going to come from. And there's like certain predictions that you can have, but there's a lot of inconsistency and you have to be like adaptable and very attuned to all of it. And people overlook like how much it takes to actually be like a neat and organized professional that shows up on time. And when I get a chance to sit with athletes like yourself, you get a little bit more into how independent minded golf is as a sport. And it overlaps. Like I did a interview with Patrick Houston. He's a world champ archery.
Oh, wow.
And it was the first time somebody related to trajectory the way that us golfers do, like connecting your consciousness to the target.
Yes.
And then staying locked into that zone. So that's like travel, because there's always stuff that comes up. That's travel to like one of your best showings ever. I know that you won on the Epson tour. Could you like, it doesn't have to be that one. It could be like one of your low rounds of your life. Could you walk us through like what clarity for you in the performance tournament state has looked and felt and smelt like?
Well, this is what's so funny with me. I felt like I've taken years to figure myself out, and my best performances have come when I feel like I've been the least prepared. When I've been running late and I like am just like showing up. I didn't have time to warm up and I just like am running to the first tee. It's actually happened twice that I can like validate it where I'm like, this is too like I couldn't plan this if I had
Hmm.
to. And then I go out and I shot like 63 one time, and another time I shot 64. And it obviously is showing me when I can turn my mind off and just be reactive. And that is when I'm in my most flow zone. Now, that's on site, but granted, there are weeks of practice that had gone into all of that,
Hmm.
things obviously were in alignment there before. But COVID, I'd say COVID, that time taught me the most because we had limited time to warm up and we had limited time to practice on the course. So again, it was all performance based and it didn't let me overthink. It didn't let me over practice. And for me, simple and finding a coach that helps me keep things simple because I want to complicate it. And when I have that person I can kind of lean on that knows the swing better than I do, because when Emma tries to think she's the swing expert, that hasn't really worked out that great for me. Now I'm a lot better and clear on my keys, my three kind of check-in points. But
Okay.
if I can have a coach that's just like, no, you just need to do this. But when I've had the coach that is like, well, let's break it down on the video. I think you could do a little of this, maybe hinge a little. I'm toast. Like I got no chance.
What are your three check-ins, if you don't mind me asking? And I know that they probably oscillate depending on what you're working on, but what are they right now?
I really just said that, but just like little stuff like balance. If you finish in
Okay.
balance, like if you, what was my other one? You can tell I've just been mostly babysitting this last year, so
Yeah.
my golf game hasn't been quite as sharp. Um, if the ball's going left, I'm swinging too far right. If the ball's going right, I'm swinging too far left. So I just kind of keep it like that simple
Okay.
and really matching my arms and body up. Like that's as much as I can adjust from there.
Okay. I'm working on inhaling on my backswing
Okay.
and exhaling on my forward swing,
I like that.
which is a crazy input. And my brother has me metronome training.
Okay.
So I'm in a pretty like significant upgrade right now. I want to play on the World Long Drive Tour next year. I want to compete.
Nice.
That's my goal. I'd have to get it to like a 280 fly down here in South Florida to be in the heat of it up in Colorado because there's such a big jump that you get from the. So I'm in my own little upgrade right now and I am playing horribly, which is what happens sometimes. Like I look great on the range and I go out on the course and I'm so in my body that I'm not attached to the target.
Yeah.
And there's this disconnect. And a lot of us players that do golf, like we get it. When you go through a swing change, you're pulling your consciousness so far into your body that you're kind of not attached to the goal. I would love to hear you riff on that kind of disparity. In my world with my coaches, we call it internal and external. So if we're inside of the body, thinking about our swing and our setup, we're not attached to the target. But if we're attached to the target, our consciousness is external and then the body is kind of in autopilot. What's your language for that separation?
Yeah. Where I learned that the best was with Vision 54. So I got introduced to them in, I want to say 2014 when I was out on the LPGA and I saw they worked with like 50 of the top 100 players. And I was like, well, this is interesting. I didn't really have a ton of experience with the mental game. And so I went to one of their main seminars and that's when I really started to understand it. And they would give me these challenges of like, turn your back to the target and you have 2 seconds to hit the golf shot where you just come in, you look at the target and you just hit it. Or we did a hole where like no talking. Like they would ask like, did you have a lot of self-talk? Did you have a lot of were you in your head consuming yourself or were you still able to connect to the target? So that type of work is like really what started to get me to understand this. So they came and watched a couple times and then they would give me challenges the next day and I implemented these during tournaments and they said,
Hmm.
we want to see how well you can finish your swing and balance. Just so I would be in a feeling rather than a thought. And I mean, kind of like my COVID days, like I couldn't play better. Like it was, and I had no like swing thought, and I had like no conscious thoughts. It was all external and reactive. And I actually grew up playing basketball, so I realized that that's how I was like raised to compete. It was all
Hmm.
very reactive. It was very less. Nothing was internalized. So
Cerebral. Yeah.
the more I internalized things, the worse I kind of got. And my career was like, it's a lot of peaks and valleys. And I didn't quite understand that about myself for a while. So I think it's, as a golfer, like people, get very fixated on the golf swing. And it is just a little piece of the puzzle. That's why this game is so addicting, because there's always something. And
Yeah,
that's
like
what makes it so
even
beautiful.
before you came on here, you were like, "Oh yeah, like I was so bad and blah blah blah." And it's like, babe, you made it to the big stage. The rest of us just like look at the LPGA tour like it's something that's so difficult to even contend with, let alone appear and then show up year after year. I mean, brutal. So, when did you start to get into the mental game, the nervous system rehearsal? How did you was it Vision 54 or whatever that kind of brought you there?
Yeah, that was definitely the introduction. So I got my LPGA card in 2014, and I think that was the first time when I really was like, wow, like I can do this. And I had, a lot of good starts, just didn't quite close the gap. And so I felt like, okay, like I need to switch coaches. I need to get some more distance. I was lacking what I felt like was some of the physical traits. Little did I know, went and I found those changes that I wanted to make, and I switched coaches, and it was I like to call it like a slow death. Unfortunately,
Mm.
I just kept playing a little worse and a little worse and a little worse, and then pretty much lost all status on the tours. 2018, right around there. 2017 limited. 2018 very little status on everything, and 2019 ended up getting married. And so like I couldn't sit with it. I just There's just like no way I could work this hard. I've never worked harder. And that's what was so disappointing, is like you know, I pride myself in, you know, working harder than anyone else out there, and that was going to get me the end result. And it just didn't. It actually like backfired like I've never seen before. So I just seen, well, that doesn't seem right. So I started reading, I just started reading. I just started asking questions, and really just wanted to dive deeper into like what is happening? Like, how can this really happen? And I think I started with a program called AMP with Benjamin Hardy. I don't know why that appealed to me. I think a friend was doing it, and I was like, "Yeah, I'll do it with you." And he had a whole book list, and that's what like got me going. I then started really connecting with Tim Grover's material, and that's where I really started to kind of understand myself. And like I was saying, I grew up playing basketball, so like I had more of like an intense mindset that didn't always connect with a lot of people. And so, yeah, just like kind of putting a lot of those pieces together. And now I know it's the foundation for everything. And, it's what I enjoy most. And I'm still learning so much. I think that's once you get into the space, like you see how quickly it can transform things, but you can also see how there's a lot of layers to this. I'm working through them in new areas of life now, but across the board, because I just think it's not stuff that I was introduced to at an early age that I feel like couldn't have made a huge impact at an early age. And unfortunately, I don't want to say unfortunately, but maybe fortunately, like a lot of people don't find these things until they're in extreme challenges, right? Until they are really pushed to the limit of breaking. And I think that's the beauty of excellence in sports, and wanting to be the best, is that you just keep pushing until you get there. So yeah, that's a little bit about
Yeah.
how I got there.
To provide context, the last time at least I ran the metrics on the LPGA tour, what separates the top 25 in the world from the rest of the pack, let's just say that the 25th person in the world versus the 100th and 20th person in the world fighting for their life to keep their status, the difference like in a per stroke per round is less than a half of a stroke. So when Emma's saying like, you're trying to, play as good as possible and then you're losing your status, you're talking about less than a half a stroke every round that you play. That separates you from the best in the world, top 20 in the world, to barely having your tour status. So the competition is so intensely, it's minuscule. Like playing at the highest end and playing at fighting for your life is a minuscule change in your game.
Yes.
Because you play 4 rounds per tournament, so a half stroke is a 2-stroke difference. It's really it's mind numbing, the stats when you get into the top 500 in the world, and that's what I don't think people really realize. Like when you're starting in a sport, you think it's all about equipment, you think it's all about coaching, you think it's all about experience, and then when you get to the upper echelon, everybody's got the same equipment, same style as coaches, and it's, to me, what separates the winners from the non-winners is this understanding of nervous system regulation, leveraging momentum, understanding how to hold your presence when you need it the most, and having the sequences that let you recover better. I think that those are the differentiating aspects across all sports between the best in the world and the one that's barely holding their spot. And that stuff, we can't find books on it. I think it's passed down from athlete to athlete, from people that have failed. So my dad was a tour player. He was a minor league tour player down here. He shot 62 twice, once with a double.
Oh, wow.
A very impossible record for me and my brother to beat Dad. My brother shot 64. My low is 70.
Nice.
So I have panic attacks when I get low. I have struggled with the heart attack feeling when I'm playing my best golf. I've struggled with, I don't like to call them the yips, but like my putting stroke tends to replicate what my nerves are doing.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
So I really had like a bit of I was like a 3-putt person in college. I would 14 fairways and 16 greens and more 3-putts than anybody else. And it was the reason why I'm not on tour. I mean, I had all the other shots in the bag and my putting just couldn't hold up the tension that I had. So I would putt great practicing, and then I would get out there, get a few under par, and the adrenaline would hit. And it was like I had no control anymore. So to train with the adrenaline was like a whole conversation that I was trying to navigate, really, with coaches that would laugh at me. They didn't know how to relate to a panic attack. And that's okay. Coach Joan Joyce, I don't know if you're familiar with her. She held the Guinness Book of Records for like lowest number of putts for a while.
Okay.
She started golf at 40 and then got on the LPGA at 42.
Amazing.
After playing professional sports in 3 different other areas.
Oh, wow.
So she was, Emma, like, she was a WNBA player. She was a like world famous softball pitcher. She played professional volleyball and then decided at 40 she wanted to learn how to play golf. She built a sequence for the short game that I still like don't really ever hear anybody talking about it. And it was a metronome training. It's very cool that my brother's into it. She's dead now, but she lives in my brain all the time as this statistician. And she was very, very intellectual about playing to your playing to your variance of shot, playing to your 80% shot, not your best shot. She was just like such a clean cut. She was a killer. Really, everything about her was like an assassin. So I just said a lot there. How is it for you when like an adrenaline hits? Do you just ride that adrenaline, or do you have to have like an internal conversation with yourself about it?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have to you have that awareness. I mean, I know coming down the stretch when it kind of is coming, where it's like, hey, this 8-iron usually goes 145. It's going 155, and I just know it, right? It's only a feeling that you can
calibrate to.
Exactly. But when you were talking about putting, Vision 54 really helped me with. I got really, really disciplined and focused on, what is it in my control? Is it like feel my elbows, or like one thought, and to disassociate myself from outcome, because that's for me when I was going down the stretch of
thinking about the future
and not really being present. And so I would have scorecards that did I commit to what I like. We had the prep box and the play box. So in the prep box, you made your decision on this is what I'm committing to. Or maybe it's just focusing on the target. And then I asked myself after I completed my swing, did I focus on the target? And that's how I grade myself on a like a 1 to 5. Did I do it? Did I do it halfway? And so I just, that's how I trained myself to train my presence. And so when I would get connected to an outcome, to connected to things out of my control, that's what always brought me back and got me into those places where, like when I said I would run late to the tournaments and those were some of my best rounds, like I was so present because I'm like, I'm about to just like, disqualify myself. So like, just show up and hit your shot. Right. And so like training that presence is what really got it a little more consistent. And when I really was able to, put all this into action, like, and it was really just my last couple of years of playing that I was able to like kind of put all of this stuff into motion now that I understand it. Before I just love to play golf. So I was just out there, doing the best I can. But then really having a lot more strategy and purpose to the practice, to train the presence, to train the nervous system. You touched on recovery there. Like I had no understanding of recovery, especially being a tour player. And that's where I also developed some autoimmune things. So that's what taught me, like, I'm like, how, like I eat clean, I work out, like all these things, right? I should be healthy as healthy gets. And it just wasn't the case. But if you don't let your mind recover, if you don't let that nervous system turn off for, however your systems are, your body's going to catch up. And I think those are things that I kind of wish I had a little better understanding of at a younger age. To your point on that top 25, being able to replicate those performances time and time again to maintain that level of excellence it's not your golf swing. It's not your equipment, right? It's all the pieces of the puzzle that come together that you've figured out the system that works for you.
Emma, I'm going to say this and I mean this with love. So like, I apologize if it hits anything, but I have been able to be around like a lot of different upper echelon players. And I noticed that the best ones are a little OCD,
For sure.
Yeah. Okay. I was hoping that it's like you build your brain to be so focused on certain things that, like, I've interacted with a ton of tour players that are kind of like socially, like very kind of socially awkward. They don't have other hobbies. Like, this is all they do. This is all they've trained. This is all they know. And they're like chess players out there. Some of them don't even want to look at you. They don't want to have a conversation with you. They want to stay in their train of mind. And they're almost like entraining their brainwaves to stay here, and they don't want any other stimulation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
you're spot on. And I think there's part of me that could go, like, naturally goes there. And I don't want to say always labeled, but there are times where it's like, Emma, you're so intense. Like, just relax. Like, you'll play better, right? And it's like, the more I leaned into my intensity and I wanted to see how intense I could get, did I really start to feel like I was like more at home, I guess you could say, where, I didn't try and tone it down. I tried to, and that's what Tim Grover really, like, I guess he gave me the quote unquote okay, right? Like, his material was, he talked about what really happens with winning. And like, I think elite performers, they have their system, they have their way, they know who they are. And, that's one of his quotes I just love: to have what you really want, you must know who you really are. And to be who you really are, I'm mixing up my words right now, but it's like, you have to know who you are. And if that means you turn everything off and you just put the blinders on and you go get it done, I'd say there's more people that have to be like that than can act like, oh, I can just be so relaxed out there and this is great. You have your system to create a result and you do what you need to do to get there. And yeah, so it's 100% OCD.
Even being out there for 4.5 hours, 5 hours, there's so many games that you play with your own adrenaline because there's such an up and down of your energy. I mean, you pass through a whole meal a lot of times. So you're eating lunch on the fly if you eat. And like you were saying, that 8-iron going from 145 to 155, like some people, you can kind of get ready for the first tee jitters. But if you're on 13 and those jitters hit you again, you have to have a kind of a way to self-dialogue so you're not flying greens. How do you keep yourself calibrated? Are you just all feel? I know sometimes I'm so cerebral
Uh-huh.
that I'm like always trying to get into the mind of an athlete, and it's all feeling. So try if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, I appreciate this. I mean, I really think for me, the presence, like I could tell like when I had a feeling. I say this because I could feel it in my hands, like when my hands would
Okay.
get shaky. And like I knew I would have like for me it was like my body wouldn't move as much. My arms would kind of take over. And so
Okay.
like I'm trying to like put it into words because I haven't really thought about it like this as much, but I would have this feeling like it's like the feeling's coming, right? And it's like whether you're coming down the stretch to finish it. And so I started like talking to myself talk a little bit. Like if it were
Okay.
if I would have a feeling, like I would just talk to it like what am I feeling? Like am I feeling okay? Am I feeling, obviously I'm feeling nervous, but what's in my control? And then I go back to my presence. And I like loop it back around to like, okay, all you can do is commit to your play box, commit to the finish, and then let the rest happen. And so I really training that presence is what gave me the most like peace of mind, and it created like calmness as I was performing that was not always there. And sometimes
So
you have to have a couple different triggers because sometimes that plan didn't work exactly like that. So maybe it's like you said, like I would have go into the day sometimes with like themes. One time Vision 54 had me write out like all the NBA teams. Like if my mind started going places where I just would have something that I would fall back to on like, well, I'm just going to focus on this thing today. So I don't start getting totally scatterbrained. So like just having little things that kind of would bring me back to focus or just one way of thought. So that was like, those are a couple different things. I don't know if that totally answered your question, but reading that feeling and then being able to like somehow get myself back to presence is how I would operate.
you sound like a pro athlete. It's like you're just like, I don't know, I felt it in my hands and then I'd trust it and then I'd play some sort of mind game with myself.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
This leveraging adrenaline conversation to me is like so pivotal for any athlete, regardless of the sport. And I had a very interesting conversation with a rugby quarterback, is how us Americans can think about his position. Fly half is like a quarterback. And then they don't have the headsets to talk to their coach. So they're out there running plays. When he went through COVID, they had to back off of training. And he started to play their team started to perform incredibly better because he started doing visualization to make up for lost practice time. But his recovery was way better. And he's like, now after COVID, he's like, there's certain changes that they made to not press as hard to train up for the tournament. And rugby's a long season. It's like 8-month season. And on the golf schedule, there is, to me, several different phases within one round itself that you kind of ebb and flow. Like there's a lift off with adrenaline at the very beginning. And then depending on how you're playing, there's another lift off on the back nine that normally happens. And, momentum can be built at any point. If you have a string of birdies together, you can feel that kind of like rise. The way that I talk to my athletes about adrenaline is by dividing consciousness, awareness, and presence into 3 separate things. Consciousness being where our mind is. So like we can be walking down a fairway and thinking about a year ago. So meaning our consciousness is elsewhere, maybe in the past or in the future, Our awareness is everything that we can see. So like if my thought of the day was just like, this is what I do a lot now, is just focus on the pretty plants and birds. That to me is just an immediate like, okay, I'm not going to watch anybody else's swing. I'm not going to watch anybody else's shot. I'm just going to get right back into the pretty clouds and the pretty birds. So when our awareness and our consciousness are together, that to me is presence. That is the field that all amazing things can come from. And when adrenaline gets introduced to the system, that to me is the hardest part to train for. Somebody can meditate all day long. That's fine. If you're playing the best round of your life and you're on 15 and adrenaline pours through your system, how are you going to amplify your presence? Because I think leveraging adrenaline is kind of that like unseen ability of superstars. Because when adrenaline hits, you're either paralyzed, or you rise to it. That's like you either you either allow it to amplify all that is within you, or it's going to kind of sabotage, depending on where you're locking in your consciousness and your awareness. So I'm really enjoying these like little word games that we're playing right now to kind of try to philosophically understand how we play to our best. Because when that adrenaline dumps, you vasodilate, so you start to shake. The heart rate increases. When the heart rate increases, it changes the brainwave. So I teach the athletes to drop their breath rate and feel their toes. So to me, body tension and breath rate are the two major inputs to the nervous system. So as the adrenaline hits, often the breath rate will unconsciously start to kind of shallow out and quicken. That's going to make everything get pretty tight and pretty shaky. So if we can pull, and this happens to like public speakers. This isn't like on the golf course only. This is any time we start to get really nervous. So if we slow the breath rate down to 4 breaths a minute, it's like a 7-second inhale, 8-second exhale. That to me, maintained for 4 minutes, can really start to dial the whole body. So instead of us getting shaky, we can start to, the way that I describe it is your presence expands. It's like you become bigger. And then that sense of bigness if we are using our presence correctly, we can dial into that target better than we ever have, because now everything in us is pretty amplified.
No,
Do you
I love that. Yeah.
Do you have a breathwork practice that you do when you start to feel any pressure, or used to do when you were feeling it?
You know, what's coming to mind that I didn't mention really before is the last year, I really started to focus on it's already done. This is what I would tell myself, because I would really focus on feeling what it felt like to do. Like for me, like, well, what does it feel like when you win? What does it feel like when you make your best swing? And so I put myself more in the future, not in the future result, but what it felt like in my body. Someone who's already had it done. So like if I'm coming down with my last 3 holes, and I would just start to feel like it's already done. And so that took a lot of that adrenaline and just kind of like it controlled it for me. And knowing like, hey, it's already done. You've already done this before. And so it was away from my body. I don't exactly know what was happening, but I know I felt there was a peace and a calmness that came over me. And it was a way for me to control the adrenaline. And, the other thing that came to mind when you were talking was Vision 54 we really worked on different tempos, 75%, 50%, 25%, knowing when adrenaline hit, I needed to feel 50%, or like I started to like get under the gun and know what those different like levels of what was really going to come out, right? Like you start to be able to gauge that level of adrenaline. And I really haven't done as much breath work as I now have learned, I'd say, or been exposed to more these last couple years to understand how it can change and excuse my ignorance on the levels of breath work and the understanding. I started doing the Wim Hof stuff. Like when I say beginner breath work, I'm very beginner. So I haven't used it as huge as much of a tool as I know that it can be to bring the adrenaline down and know that because I think I was having I wasn't getting a full, when you do the 7 seconds in and 7 seconds out, like that's it was shallow breathing is what I was getting at, is what I was experiencing more on the course and not knowing it. So creating that awareness has helped me, but I haven't developed I've done it for chunks of time where I would do like in the morning, I would wake up and just focus on my breath for 10 to 15 minutes. But I know there's an area for improvement there. That's for sure.
Yeah. I would love to introduce you to mine. I say breath work like it's all the same, and there's a giant disparity, in my opinion, of when someone's teaching a mouth breathing hyperventilation style. That is only good for people that are very numbed out, really good for people who are drug addicts, really good for people with post-traumatic stress that are pretty numb. If someone is overstimulated and dealing with adrenaline, that's the worst style of breath work that we could possibly do for the nervous system because it creates a crash. So most of breathwork style that's out there comes from Dr. Stanislav Grof and Wim Hof. Both of them teach like a mouth hyperventilation style technique that induces classically, if you go long enough, an LSD DMT response. Really good for when LSD became illegal. That's what Dr. Grof was trying to handle. We've applied it to everyone as if it's just a blanket statement good for people, which is why I'm such like an outlier in my market. So I teach musical breathwork, the course, which has to do with becoming back to life as a musical. As a singer, you use air pressure as it is your force of power. Gases like to rise. So if you don't have a shape within your body to control this, you have no powerful belting. You have no powerful sound. So I teach the breath in a sense for touring musicians, how to develop a very deep relationship with the nasal glands so that they're always working functional, active, and not full, so that your voice doesn't sound funny when you're singing.
Okay.
Then we strength train the diaphragm and the intercostals to create a shape. The shape being, if you want to walk through it with me.
Yeah, for sure.
We're going to slow motion swallow and lift the back third of the tongue against the roof of the mouth. This little action here of lifting the tongue actually engages our vagus nerve, which is going to tell the nervous system to relax. It also sucks down on the soft palate, which lets your nasal glands drain and open. And then there's nerves in the back of the mouth, like kind of like when you yawn, you activate them. By lifting our tongue up, we're doing all of those things. Then when we nose breathe, we're going to feel the belly come out first, okay? Then keep the air in the belly and then inhale more, fill your back, sides, and chest. Hang out here on the top, kind of get uncomfortable, like, wow, that's the most amount of air you can put there. Then exhale with control. I want you to empty the upper part of your lung field while you keep your belly out. Push, push, push down. Then release the belly and then empty all of the way until you're uncomfortable. Empty, empty, empty. Feel the diaphragm rise, the belly sucking in. Then inhale, push the belly out again, all through the nose. When the belly's full, keep it there. Inhale more, fill the back, sides, chest. Reach that uncomfortable maximum space, and then exhale, pushing the air down, emptying the chest, sides, back, and then belly. And you could practice this shape, Emma, with a book on your tummy while you're watching TV.
Okay.
And just by breathing in this shape, it's when you train with me, it turns into 4 pieces. So it's like a Fibonacci wave. We're like sucking the air in with power, filling it up in the bottom, and then filling it up to the top, then pushing the air down. As a singer or a mom who shouts, when we do it this way, you are pumping your air like an accordion. So this creates like incredible ability to like resonate. So opera singers would add an extra layer of your pelvic floor that helps support the breath tension. So anytime a breathwork teacher is instructing mouth breathing and it's just a inhale and a collapse and you have to count time, to me, that's all old school. It's all kind of half-hearted science. They're not singers. They're not free divers. We need a shape. I would love to get you training a mighty breath because it's huge for the nervous system to slow down. Also, when you're giving birth, it develops your relationship to your diaphragm in a way where Lamaze classes, even like when they're saying push, 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 and they're doing all the mouth breathing, but the mom doesn't actually know how to feel the diaphragm. So the mighty breath, we strength train it. There's 3 exercises. It only takes 7 or 10 minutes, whichever one you rip through that day. But when we develop a really good relationship with the diaphragm, I haven't had kids, but I've had dreams of giving birth and it being like 4 minutes on my body, just like, oh, okay, I just have to like open and then push. So I would love, I mean, the dreams seem easy, but wouldn't that be so cool if it's like, oh, it's the relationship to this big muscle that pushes down on all the internal organs. There's a lot of beautiful things that come when we start to breathe with like a lumbar diaphragm movement. Cerebral spinal fluid moves, the internal organs get a massage, and I fantasize that birthing a child would be significantly easier.
Well, I look forward to diving into more with you on that because I think that's fantastic. You said something about nervous system, like the breath being able to control the nervous system, and that's I met with Dr. Sean Drake after I had actually it had been almost a year postpartum. And I listened to one of his podcasts, and, that's when I really started to understand how my nervous system hadn't really turned off in years. And especially having a newborn and being up late and just always being like on that. I did a couple different therapies through PMF and some sound therapies, some different ways to be more in tune
Slow
with my
down.
nervous system. That I hadn't, I think I was more in tune with myself on the course than like, I feel like I'm at home, there's not as much, but like the nervous system is on in so many different situations in so many different ways. And I think having more tools, especially through breath work, to control the nervous system. And, like you said, a lot of these things aren't taught. They're taught through stories, through challenges, through word of mouth. They're so necessary as I continue on through life. And it's something I guess I want to bring to my players and athletes, and helping them understand their when the nervous system is, in the fight or flight. And again, I know this on I feel like very athlete level, like rocks terms, right? Like you're not going to be you're not in your best state. Like it can only last for so long. And the real winners, the one who have excellent performances time and time again, they understand their nervous system. They know when it's on, they know how to make it recover, and they know how to be in elite shape to perform every single day. And I think like having those habits and being more in tune with yourself on we're taught to check into our swing all kinds of different ways, but I hadn't been taught tons of ways to be in check with my nervous system. And so I know you're way more of an expert than I am, and I'm still like getting more versed in this space, but now I'm understanding the importance of it across the board.
Yeah, Emma, I would love to link up with you more professionally. I'd love to get you training on my programs. Just it would be downstream for you with your pregnancy.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
To incorporate some like really nice recovery style stuff. But I think this is the missing link, like
Agreed.
for a lot of golf. Like, so many days I wake up and I'm like, if I knew this at 18, I'd be on tour. And I would just be living like such a different life. But here we are. And I did the best I could with the information I had, but I just suffered with my adrenaline. And I was so like, I could get through all of the putting drills on the putting green, And for me, it was putting. Putting just ripped me apart. And I still pick up a 4-footer now on a Sunday because I'm like, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing the stress. My brother hates it. He was like, man, the hole's got to feel so big. You just pick up 4-footers. I'm like, we're not playing for enough money for me to give a shit. I'm just going to give it to myself.
That's hilarious. I love that.
I still struggle, to be honest, Emma. I did only match play gambles or scramble gambles now because stroke play, I'm gonna 3-putt, but we'll see. I mean, I don't know if we'll ever be done golf. I can still imagine myself as an old lady talking shit.
Yes, as you should. That's what's so beautiful about golf. And I think, it sounds like you have really enjoyed the game and loved the game. And I feel like I'm blessed with the way that the game was introduced to me, that it was never this like systematic thing. Like I love it. Like it's so much fun. It's like art. Honestly, when I look back at your guitars back there, and when I made the game more than a game, that's when I don't enjoy it. But when I can go out there and I play and I have fun and I enjoy it, like the way it's like it is a relationship. Like I love the game. And so like I think that's a huge piece for me of like understanding myself, but like having fun with it and making it a game and not making it anything more. Because when I do, that's not how I feel like it's meant to be for me.
I envy that. Me and a lot of other D1 players, because there's a jump. Like if you played in high school, there's a small percentage that play in college. And then when you play in college, there's a small percentage that turn pro.
Yeah, very.
And those of us that don't go on to make it to tour, like there's a big failure that you have to deal with. And that failure like led me to 3 years of not touching a club, which was pretty usual. Like I had some older friends that had became like teaching pros that played D1. And when they didn't make it on tour, you suck up that $1,000 Q school bill. and your family member paid for it or whatever. And then after that, you have to get really honest with like, shit, do I have what it takes? And for me, it was 7 years into invested in the sport, and I had to go and get a big girl job, and it was so depressing, and I couldn't touch a club for a long time. And I remember the first Thanksgiving that my friends got me out, and they guilted me. They were like, it's family tradition. You have to play. Like, it's been years, blah, blah, blah. And I remembered I had to get drunk because it was just, I know that sounds so awful, but like I couldn't enjoy not hitting the ball well. I couldn't, like, there was so much comparison to what could have, what should have, whatever. It took me a long time to just find my peace with the sport again. And now I love it. But I think that like the socio-psychology of people who think they're going to make it and then they don't, it is a weird, depressing place to be, to realize that you're years and years into a sport that like you're not going to make it, and now you have to go like enter the real world with the rest of the muggles. And brutal. Like, really, just, it's a depressing space. So I'm happy to have a relationship with the sport now, but it took me years to just kind of laugh at myself. And now I giggle the whole time. If I shoot 86, if I shoot 76, like, I'm still happy to kind of maintain a low handicap without too much effort, but I try to just giggle out there because I'm not playing for money, and it's okay. And I still can hit the ball like really well. It's the chipping goes and comes, like if you're not training. But thanks for saying that, because it took me a while. It took me a while to get back to just like the love of it. I envy in like the most respectful way what it takes to actually tour 27 plus weeks a year, to arrange your entire lifestyle around your physical body, which requires every muscle. You can't like pull your finger without your golf swing being affected. So there's so many things. Like, do you ski? Do you snowboard at all?
No,
Yeah.
The last time I went skiing was like the 5th grade, and then it started interfering with basketball, and then it was just I'm not even putting it on the table. So
People don't realize like when you're a golfer,
getting into it.
There's okay.
Yeah, no, you make tons of sacrifices like to make it happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
I appreciate what you said, because I do feel like when like I initially started to play like very bad, that's where it was like, maybe it was depression. I don't know what it was, but things like it just kind of kept snowballing in the wrong direction, where the love for the game, it wasn't there. Like, you can only work so hard and not get a result for so long until like you're just completely depressed. And I think that's where changing the perspective, changing the story, whatever it takes. If you got to get drunk to get there, like I guess you can do it in a lot of different ways.
I don't have to anymore, just for the record. But those first few times back out, I like could not handle watching the bad shots that I was hitting.
Gosh, that's funny. That's a good story. But yeah, now thankfully, because I look back on my career sometimes to your point of what you're saying is like, it is by no means the career I imagined. It is way subpar than that. But when I'm able to really look a little deeper and like really like know that this is happening for me, and like the lessons I learned, and like the things like, I like to think that some of the best players in the world aren't always your best coaches, because they're not the ones that have dealt with a lot of the shit that really you go through on different ways of understanding things. And everyone is different, and everyone's story is different. And so I do feel like I bring up a lot of experience to the table when it comes to trying different things and figuring out what works and what doesn't. And I also feel pretty lucky to have the support of like family, sponsors, to even have that opportunity to give things a try when things were tough and when things financially weren't making sense. And I had another sponsor come on board, and I could keep trying. And I feel, I have the mixed emotions. Is to my point of all of this, is that it was not all like, rainbows and butterflies. Like, it was like dirty and like depressing all at the same time. And I can choose how I want to look at it moving forward. I'm like, I have a skill set like that, and in experiences that I know I can build on for the rest of my life. Like, I did qualify for the European Tour, and I went over there and missed every cut. It was terrible. Like, I'm over there by myself most of the time, and didn't make a cent. I made some money in pro-ams. That's where I made a few dollars, but that's not like it totally paid for my my year out there. But I can look at that as a complete failure, or I can look at that as like, I just have a whole new experience on a whole different tour and I got to see all of
You
Europe.
you got to see all of Europe and play the best golf courses in the world.
Yeah. So it wasn't total loss, but in my mind, it can totally be a loss. Like at times, it's not like, because I am not happy shooting 80. Like I am not someone you want to be around. So like, it definitely takes time to process that and be able to verbalize it when at the time, like you probably didn't want to be the person on the other end of the phone.
Yeah. Oh my God. I get it. My brother was an LPGA tour caddy for a little while and he played the minor league. So he got sponsored for a year and did the minor league tours thing in Orlando and he didn't win. So no, if you don't win on the minor league tours, I think he got one win. I lied. He got one win. Wasn't enough to impress a sponsor to do another year paid. So he had the same kind of depression conversation with himself that I did. And what I found was that as a golf cart girl, I could gamble. Yeah. So those of us that have to give up the sport on the big field, we find our way into the gambling circuits. There's still money to be made.
There is. And I'm telling you, that adrenaline can kick in there when you start gambling. Like, you got to get your fix somehow. So I get that. Yes.
Yeah. So training for Q School just involved me and a bunch of cocky caddies that were, would underestimate me. And the shakier their knees were within the swing, the more money I was willing to put down. That's what I found is like, if I just didn't hit balls on the range first so that they couldn't metric my swing.
Gotcha.
As a 5'1" person, I could kind of talk enough shit where they would really, want to put some stuff down. So the rest of us have to figure out how to make money without the big league. So I commend you for touring and like, it got to be brutal to not make cuts, but there's a silver lining everywhere. And like somebody like me would have killed for that experience. So just like a frame of reference for those of us that didn't make it. I know when you're on the big stage, you compare yourself to the biggest names in the world.
For sure.
And the athlete in you, like I tell people, golf is one of those things, just like music, the better you get, the worse you are. The benchmark is always raising. And then even the world champs, what I realize now interviewing like niche world champions is that they compare themselves to the year before. So even if they're out there and they're dominating the competition, they're psychically trying to beat the record that they established the year after. And it's like, that's just the ambitious drive of athletes. The bar is, we've never reached the bar. Wherever the bar is, the bar will continually move. So it's like enjoying the recovery and the up and down and the, like, that's where the love of sport really like sits because we all suck.
Right.
Better we get, the more we suck,
Yes, very well said.
What would be, I know that we're coming to a close here, so like 2 more questions. What would be your biggest advice to someone who is playing in a tournament and they just had a horrible hole and they step up on the next hole? What would be like something you would advise them to recenter, to reset?
You can't control it. So really just checking in with yourself again. Like you're obviously, well, not obviously, everyone handles it differently. I would be extremely angry and it would be easy for me to not be as present. So just going back and checking in with myself on my presence. What's my swing thought, or what am I committing to in this swing and committing to this swing? So yeah, really just getting back to your presence, getting back to your routine and letting go of everything you can't control, which would have been everything that happened 2 minutes ago or 20 days ago or 3 years ago, because that's all you can do. So that's what I would say. Just check back into your presence.
Beautiful. And then I'm going to be sharing how people can follow you, how they can contact you in the show notes below. But is there anything that you would like to leave the audience with that perhaps we didn't cover in this conversation?
I would say trust your gut and believe in your potential and believe in yourself. Believe in, like, there's always an opportunity to learn and grow and find that next level of you. I think that's what excites me the most about myself and working with others, because I think the more we challenge ourselves, the more we learn about ourselves and the more perspective and understanding we have as we like go through life. I just feel so grateful to have a chance that the opportunity to challenge myself. And, now it's in a whole new way. Like trying to chase a toddler around is another is another game I didn't know I was getting myself into as deep as it can be, but also through the agent lens. I think all of those, as I work with some younger players, like just stay curious, trust yourself.
That's great advice. That's great advice. Thanks for coming on with us today.
Oh, thank you.